Hello, it's me. Check out this factory. This is a low footprint solution to Terrestrial Drone, one of the puzzles in the final section. You'll see in a moment why it's interesting. This early section is just taking the inputs. So we've got white blocks which make up some sort of control unit, gun barrel pieces, treads down there, main body of the tank thingies, 4 inputs in all, and it's sending them down stacked conveyor belts on top of each other to reduce footprint. That bit makes sense, sort of, although there's a trick to it. Here is where things stop making sense. I decided that a GIF is not sufficient to demonstrate the operation of this factory. It's actually not as complex as it was when I first got it working. When I first made this concept work at all, it was actually even dumber than this. And that was at about 180 footprint, but now I've got it down to 154, and it's actually a little simpler than it used to be. So, the basic principle here is assembly in place. I want to bring in all the inputs into this main building on this one single strip, and then build the tank all at once. There is a minor issue with that, which is that I've got 4 inputs. Again, body, tread, gun, and CPU. And there's only enough vertical space here for 3 conveyor belts. So I've combined the gun barrel and gun barrel and CPU inputs onto this one bar here. That leads us to the first interesting thing going on here. So we get gun barrels and white thingies all coming in at once. The barrels go around this loop, setting off this detector which pushes out the white blocks, and eventually combining themselves into a single long barrel. Oh, let's try that again. Just bring back some barrels. Combine into a single long barrel. So this long barrel then goes off to the side here. This is an inefficiency I'd really like to get rid of. Anyway, it floats up and over, down. This actually eventually triggers the production itself. As that barrel falls, it passes through these 2 detectors, which end up pushing the barrel along, pushing out the main body of the tank. They combine and head inward. From that point, there's only one additional thing that has to be done. You see this blocker? This detector has to re-trigger that blocker so that this doesn't get stuck. But I'll get back to that in a second. It's the gun barrel part. The white units come out slightly faster than everything else. They have to be delayed here, just a one input delay. Nothing else is delayed, everything else is just precisely timed. So those things stack onto the main body. These treads are built in place into a pair of long treads which push onwards down those conveyor belts. This system of welders, there's 4 of them in all, plus a block which is just there to push another one of them around, zaps into place in order to weld the whole thing together, and then gets out of the way so it can actually move again. Let's see, are there any other interesting aspects? Yeah, so this block here, this has to trigger the welders twice in order to keep them in place long enough. This maze of pipes is basically so that different parts of the system can make things happen in different other parts. So this is randomly used as a timing input, for example. So that, oh no wait, that's not used as a timing input. Something around here is, that I think, is used as a timing input so that something else can happen. Ah yes, that's what triggers this welding. Right, so the assembly of the main body. This was actually the trickiest bit. When I got this almost working, the problem I had was that these blocks did not come fast enough because my initial assembly was to form pairs of these and then stack them up into a 2x3 and then cut one off to make the shape that's needed here. What we need is, you can't actually see the shape, but let's just have a look at the end product for a sec. Okay, you can see there the main body is being built. It is an L shape, and the illusionary tank will come into place in the view in just a sec. Yeah, there it is. So basically you need a gap in the main structure to fit the white thing into. So initially I was building a 2x3 and chopping one of them off, but that actually left the production of these too slow for everything else, and so the production of the brown units was basically it would work for several runs, and then no matter what I did, it would all kind of fall apart because everything else was coming in too quickly. And ironically, for a really low footprint solution like this, you actually need to time things very carefully. You can't just rely on asynchronous blocking and discards via accelerators. So this is built up by having the blocks fall in place, zap, 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 and that almost works easily, but what actually makes it work is this pusher here, which pushes that final welder into place so that the top one is only welded onto the body at the right moment. Otherwise, you can't use the incoming blocks themselves to trigger the activation. That's about all there is to it. One of the most important optimizations was actually assembling the treads in place here. That was quite difficult. As you can see, this thing goes in and out indecisively and kind of only just works. And in order to stack them up long enough, I need this block here as well, because these things need to form a kind of backlog, because these have to be ready as soon as a tank goes in. As soon as one drone is produced, then I need to almost immediately have those two more treads ready. And that is so that this block, the brown 2x3 L shape, can drop into place in the middle between the two treads. The two treads have to go in before the brown thing goes, like that, see? It falls in just after they come in. So I need to build up a backlog here so that two treads can be produced relatively quickly. This is also nice for compressing space, of course, because if they don't have to slide down here. So let's have a look at the footprint of the whole thing. Basically, this is how much space it takes up. All of this outside here, this is totally minimal. This is the absolute minimum you can get away with. It just forms all into a single queue. I don't think there's any way to optimize that further. Then once we get inside, this is close to optimal, but with a couple of excrescences. This assembly area is of course all necessary. You need a 3x6 area to build a tank in, and then the 3x6 area to output it. You also need that, so those are unavoidable. These excrescences, though, things like this pusher with this pipe, this pusher with this pipe, there's a repeated problem in this solution where basically the pipes can't conflict with each other, so I had to set all of them one square back. And this blocker is also tricky. That's what prevents the input from actually happening too early. But then it has to re-trigger itself, like I was saying earlier, otherwise it just breaks. So there's a couple of inefficiencies in those. And then, yeah, here's another case of, you see that piece of footprint. That's, those two, I would love to have a nicer solution for that. I mean, I could, in theory, it would be possible to get that somewhere else, but anyway. So the footprint of that is 154, which as you can see is not quite off the charts, but it is pretty good and I am happy with it. And now let's just make the whole thing go through in super fast mode, so that you can see, in fact, it is very stupid. It was much stupider when I was forming pairs of ground blocks here, because this rotator here, that used to simultaneously serve the gun barrels and the brown core, and they would kind of take turns rotating and slotting into place just. Still a bit silly, but now it's much better, and it works. Both advantages. Thank you for probably not watching this video, because I'm not sure why anybody would.